A lot of people like to say that all I do is make videos complaining about things, mostly in GTA Online, which, I do make a lot of videos complaining about the things that I find annoying in that game. To be fair, that game does have a lot of problems, but today we're doing the opposite of that. I want to talk about Resident Evil Requiem. This was one of my most hyped games of this year. It was this and GTA 6, and I'm very happy to say that this game did not disappoint. It was absolutely amazing. I can't really glaze it enough. I thought it was incredible, and so I just want to make a video talking about it to you guys. As a warning though, I will not discuss any story spoilers in this video. The only spoilers that I will be discussing are related to gameplay elements or enemy types, which I'll let you know ahead of time when I do get into that. So if you want to avoid any spoilers altogether, then just click off the video at that point. What RE9 does is it takes aspects of Resident Evil 2 Remake and 7 and mixes them with the action-oriented gameplay of RE4 Remake. And it works out so well, surprisingly. One of the things I was worried about getting into this game was that one section would overshadow the other one. And that doesn't happen. Both the sections are very well done. And as someone who is a fan of both RE2 Remake and RE4 Remake, those are my favorites in the franchise. This game is like the greatest hits combining those two games together. The Chronic Care Center at the beginning of the game is such a good Resident Evil zone, akin to the RPD of 2 Remake or the RE1 Mansion even. Exploring the halls of the hospital with a bunch of different zombie types around that all have their different personalities and quirks to them. It really is just a massive Resident Evil survival horror playground for you to mess around in, and I loved it all the way through. You're slowly unlocking new areas and backtracking to ones you've already been in, unlocking shortcuts, managing inventory space to carry key items, deciding on what enemies you should blow away with the hemolytic injector, which is essentially just a one-hit KO stealth attack consumable that you have access to as Grace. If you don't blow an enemy's head off with a crit or use the injector on them, some enemies will come back later as blister heads, which are a nod to the Crimson Heads from RE1 Remake that did the same sort of thing. And those guys are very bad news for Grace. You usually need to avoid those enemies because they just take so many resources to kill if you don't use the insta-kill injector on them. I also really like the crafting system with the blood. I think it was an interesting gameplay mechanic where most of the items in the game require blood to craft, and you get it from various points around the map or from zombies that you kill. And then after dealing with a long Grace section where every enemy is terrifying and you have to make a decision whether to kill or just to stealth past them, you switch over to Leon, and you just beat the fuck out of everything in your path. A blister head that you had trouble with as Grace is a simple kneecap to axe finisher for Leon. If you played RE4 Remake, you'll feel right at home with the combat in this game. It's like John Wick if he was up against zombies, basically. Getting into the characters, I really like the characters in this game. I think Grace is a really strong new character to the franchise, and especially the voice actress that plays her did an amazing job. It's such a nice upgrade from Ethan in the past couple of games. I'm not saying Ethan was a terrible character, it's just on a different level when you can actually see the character's face and their emotions. Grace might actually be one of my new favorite RE characters, honestly. Victor Gideon is also a really good villain. I think he's interesting. He's very Joker-esque in some ways. And of course, Leon is obviously Leon. He's still cheesy and just an overall badass. And all of the characters gave a really good performance in this game, so I can't really complain at all here. As for the story and narrative, it was really intriguing to me. I was interested in it from start to finish in the narrative department. I would say that this is one of the best Resident Evil stories we've seen. And yeah, there are things that really don't make much sense when you think about it. There are a few plot holes. I'm not saying that this is like a Last of Us 1 or RDR2 level of narrative here. But for a Resident Evil game, which usually the story isn't the main reason why you play these games, I was fully invested in it from start to finish. It's also a pretty dark story. As you read more into the lore with the files and the monsters, you realize more and more how dark of a theme it really has. There were a couple moments in particular where I sat back in my chair and went, wow, that's pretty fucked up even for a Resident Evil game. But that's as much as I'll say about the story to avoid spoiling anything. I don't want to get into any spoilers. The graphics in this game are also insane. Some of the most detailed character models I have seen in a video game. The hair physics and how the lighting bounces off of hair, especially when you play as Grace in third person. I played this game on PC, maxed out with path tracing and everything, and it looked phenomenal. And it also ran really well too, even with path tracing on. I only ran into a few performance issues in the later game areas when you get to Raccoon City, but even that was just one specific area mostly. Everything interior based ran exceptionally well, even while I was streaming and recording at the same time on the same computer. And I've heard the game is also very well optimized for consoles too, which isn't that surprising. Typically Resident Evil games run great and are optimized well, so it's really not a shock there. The sound design and soundtrack are also standouts in this game compared to the last two mainline games, and even the remake's original soundtracks. For me, I can tell when a game has a good soundtrack when I'm playing it, And the music that I'm hearing is not only noticeable while I'm in gameplay, but it's enhancing the atmosphere that I'm currently in. And this game, it does both of those things. The music that plays when you're getting chased by one of the stalker enemies enhances the horror. The little noir style sound effects when you come across an enemy sometimes as Grace are a nice touch. The sounds of the zombies are great also. They'll have like conversations with each other. They have personalities. Hearing the singing zombie through the walls as you approach it is just creepy. Hearing the stalker enemies walking around as you try to pinpoint the location while sneaking around, it's all just great. And then in Leon's section, his combat music is very industrial sounding. It kind of gives off a mix of Cyberpunk, John Wick, and Doom all in one. I feel like that's a perfect way to describe it. I've definitely gone and looked up some of the soundtracks just to listen to them again because it's just really good. My first playthrough of this game lasted just over 11 hours, basing it off of the end game timer that shows up, but that doesn't account for the time in the pause menu or in cutscenes. When I checked Steam, it was somewhere around like 15 to 16 hours of playtime when I finished the game. And for me, this is one of those games where I was so invested in it and just enjoying every minute that when it was over, it kind of made me sad. And there's only a few games I can think of where I got so invested in the world and the characters and just the gameplay and atmosphere where I was left feeling that way. RDR2, KCD2, and Cyberpunk. I can remember feeling that way after beating those games as well. Honestly, my biggest complaint about this game is that I just want more. And I suppose that's a good problem to have. And this is where I will start to get into some spoilers regarding the enemies within the game and some of the gameplay elements. So if you want to click off the video now, then now would be a good time to do that. I really wish this game had some kind of mercenaries or even a wave-based survival mode to engage with the combat more, because I was left wanting more combat, honestly. And the way that Leon's upgrade system works would work so well with like a wave-based survival mode here. You get currency by killing enemies automatically, and then you use that currency to buy upgrades and new weapons at a storage box. Throw me into the Chronic Care Center as Leon, put the upgrade box in the main hub area like it is when you start a second playthrough, and just send waves of enemies after me and let me go through the hospital beating some zombie ass for hours on end. Or even, fuck it, not just zombies, throw some of the later game enemies after me as well. Have the soldiers from Ark hunting you down within the care center for some rounds. The grenade zombie, the chainsaw zombies, just turn it into a big combat sandbox where I can go on and on for rounds, upgrading my loadout in between to see how long I can survive. It would work so perfectly for Leon's upgrade system, and maybe they will do something like this in a future update. I really hope so, because the combat is just too fun to not have a mode like that. I also kind of dislike the way this game does its New Game Plus. It's not really a New Game Plus system at all. You don't keep anything from the previous playthrough. Instead, Leon's upgrade system is just active from the very beginning, and you can buy weapons from the get-go, which is okay, but it's still really annoying because you have to wait until the late game essentially to get your proper weapon loadout that you want with all of the upgrades on it. Instead of being able to just start a New Game Plus like in RE4, for instance, where you go in with maxed out weapons already and stuff from the playthrough prior. So if you want to do a playthrough with like one specific weapon as Leon, for instance, you can't really do that because you have to spend half the game upgrading the weapon to even get a fully kitted out version of that weapon to then use it for the remaining half of the game. And for Grace, it would have been nice if her health, firepower upgrades, blood upgrades, and carrying capacity carried over to New Game Plus. I just don't know why that wouldn't be a thing. It seems like a strange omission to me not having a New Game Plus feature. And another idea I had specifically for replaying the game is it would be very cool if on a replay you could choose a combined playthrough where you're going to play as both Grace and Leon, or if you could just play the Grace or Leon scenarios if you wanted to. Because the two characters, they do play very differently. Sometimes you'll be in the mood for some Leon gameplay, some action, and sometimes you're in the mood for a more traditional survival horror experience with Grace. I love the way that both characters play, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I am all for player choice and freedom, especially on replays, and I don't really see any issue with just having the game skip to the scenario of the character that you want to play on replays. Because let's say then for Leon, when you switch to him after the Grace section in the hospital, when I got back to Leon in my first playthrough, he had like no one left to kill because I murdered almost every zombie as Grace. So that portion of the game was essentially just me going and busting open a bunch of cabinets to get their loot from. But let's say you're doing a Leon-only replay, for instance, the game could simulate that Grace got through the hospital all stealthily, and then have a hospital full of zombies to kill for Leon, and that would then increase the playtime for Leon because there'd be more to do with him as you're not clearing the entire area as Grace yourself. I don't know, I just think that would be a really good idea for just replaying the game. Obviously, on a first playthrough, don't do that. The first playthrough, you should experience both scenarios at the same time as the story was intended, but I don't see the problem with giving more freedom on a replay. And I guess another small complaint would be with the weapon skins. they kind of just didn't really expand on it. Like, I thought this game was going to have some cool unlockable ones for doing various challenges in the game, because for pre-ordering and getting the deluxe edition, you get weapon skins, and I thought that was going to be like a main feature in the game to have some unlockable ones, but no, those are the only ones that you can get are from pre-ordering or getting the deluxe edition, which I think is kind of lame. Like, how awesome would it have been if there was a challenge where you had to kill, like, I don't know, 10,000 enemies or something with the Requiem, and then you unlock a gold camo for it or something, just a long-term challenge that keeps you playing the game. Or for Grace's handgun, also the same thing, just have you killing a ton of enemies with it. And maybe when you have the gold camouflage on, it just ramps up the crit rate to a ton, so you're just blasting enemies' heads off with it nonstop. That would have been a cool addition. Overall, though, the game is an easy 9 out of 10 for me. It was great. My only gripes are with the way the New Game Plus system is handled and just the lack of a secondary mode to really let you go crazy with the gameplay mechanics. We'll see if they do end up putting another mode in the game at a later date. I feel like they have to, especially with the 30th anniversary coming up. It feels weird not to have a secondary mode in this game, when most of the other Resident Evil games do have a secondary mode. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say. Highly recommend this game. It's fantastic. It's easily my game of the year so far, and that will likely stay that way until GTA 6 comes out later at the end of this year. If you guys enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like, as well as subscribe to my channel for more content. I know this isn't a video that I would typically make, but I really just wanted to make a video talking about how good this was and giving it the proper praise. I also want to give a huge shout out to all my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.